Buongiorno a tutti, siamo qui pronti per iniziare
Good
questa
morning, everybody.
sessione
We are ready to start this morning's session
dell'EuroBioHighTech.
of EuroBioHighTech.
Oggi la sessione plenaria è
The plenary
dedicata
session
al tema
today
della finanza per l'innovazione,
is
che è stato
dedicated to finance for innovation,
adeguatamente dettagliato nel programma. Lo,
which
lo
has
leggo
been
anche, diciamo,
adequately
per
detailed in
utilità
the program.
di chi è presente.
I'm
Bank
going to
Finance and
read
Insurance
the
for
agenda.
BioHighTech, Digital HighTech and Energy HighTech Innovation. Quindi parliamo di innovazione, ma parliamo anche di
So we are talking
finanza in
about
determinati
innovation,
ambiti,
but we are talking
settori,
about innovation in set
innovazione in
fields,
campo tecnologico
innovation in
e
technology,
nel campo dell'alta tecnologia.
high tech.
Ma parliamo soprattutto di finanza. Perché di finanza?
But
Perché
above all, we are going
l'innovazione è
to speak
un'attività
about finance.
rischiosa,
Why
è
finance?
un'attività che
Because
richiede
innovation is a risky business
ovviamente una visione imprenditoriale, una
which
capacità
requires
esecutiva, delle competenze
entrepreneurship,
scientifiche, ma anche
scientific skills,
risorse finanziarie
but also financial
soprattutto la disponibilità
resources.
da parte di soggetti di cui
And
oggi
above all,
ci faremo un'idea, perché c'è un ampio ventaglio anche di relatori che si
players.
presentano alla Fiera delle Innovazioni, di
Today we
soggetti che sono
have a
disposti a
wide
condividere
audience of
con chi persegue
people who
programmi
are
di
willing
innovazione i
to
rischi di
share
queste attività.
the risks of the activity.
Parliamo di rischi quando noi possiamo
We talk
calcolare,
about risks.
diciamo, le probabilità che un evento
We
accada
can
o non
calculate
accada.
probabilities
Questa
that
cosa
an
stiamo
event
vivendo in un
may or
contesto di
may not
estrema
occur.
incertezza.
Today, we are living
Per cui, non
in
siamo neppure in
uncertain
grado
times.
di immaginare quali possano essere
We are
le
not even
probabilità,
capable of imagining
di
what
quantificare l'alea che grava su
the
certi
odds
eventi.
may be.
Passiamo soltanto alle dichiarazioni
We
di
can't
quello che
quantify the probability that a set
carta
event
ci
occurs.
ottiene. Quindi viviamo in un contesto che è un po',
We are
se
living in a
volete, quello che noi
context
accademici chiamiamo un
which
contesto VUCA,
we
volatile,
of the
incerto,
academia call
complesso, ambiguo.
VUCA,
Quindi che
volatile,
cosa vuol dire
uncertain,
fare finanza per
complex,
l'innovazione
ambiguous.
in un contesto come
What does it
questo?
mean to make finance for innovation in such a
In che
context?
misura i soggetti
And in
pubblici e
particular,
privati
to what
possono
extent public and private
realizzare
players
sinergia per sostenere
can reach
progettualità
synergies
che spesso arrivano da
to
giovani
support
imprese,
projects
quelle che vengono
often
spesso
coming
definite
from
urban center,
newborn enterprises as the ones
quindi
that the
soggetti
urban
che
center hosts.
appunto gli start-upper li chiamiamo, che spesso
We're talking
al di
about
là, diciamo,
start-uppers
di grandi ambizioni e competenze
that,
anche,
beyond
diciamo,
having
accademiche qualificate, poi
great
hanno
ambitions and academic skills,
questo
do not
progetto.
have
Quindi
the
come la
necessary
finanza può
resources
aiutarli e in che
to
misura
carry
appunto
on with
il
their
denaro
projects?
pubblico può
How can
essere
finance help
integrato in
them?
quello che
How
noi
can
deve
public
stare nello
funding
squilibrio.
be
Ma le
integrated?
questioni
Where's
che
the
poniamo
right
sono diverse da
balance to
quelle che potrebbero
find?
farci in un
The
tavolo di
questions we are
discussione
making are
dedicato alla
different
ricerca e
than the
ricerca.
ones
Questa è
we
un'attività
would be
rischiosa,
making in a
aleatoria,
table dedicated to
perché
research.
caratteristica
Research
non è
is risky
soltanto
too,
una
but
realtà
because
economica,
of
l'innovazione
its
invece è una realtà
properties,
orientata a
is not
creativa,
only
e
an
caratteristica
economic
invece della
activity,
ricerca,
whereas
noi siamo
innovation
abituati a
is.
pensare che lo Stato debba
When
intervenire, lo
we
fa,
think
dedicandosi
of
soldi
research, we're
alla
used to
ricerca di
think
base,
that
all'università,
the government ought
e
to
non
intervene
solo.
because research is carried out by
Allora,
university, by basic
la domanda che potremmo
institutions.
farci è in che modo
So the
la finanza
question
può
we could
favorire
be posing ourselves
l'innovazione,
is,
eh,
how can finance
che
support
rappresenta il
and
secondo
foster
passo della filiera
innovation?
che parte con la ricerca. Quindi c'è una
Innovation,
ricerca
which
che
is
deve
the
essere
second
derivata,
step of a
applicata e poi c'è
chain, starting
l'innovazione.
with
Poi le domande che
research,
possiamo farci è prova a
research, basic
farle.
research or advanced research,
Per
and then we come to
dare qualche
innovation.
riflessione, qualche stimolo ai presenti e
I'm
soprattutto ai
just giving you
relatori.
some stimuli
Che cosa vuol dire
to
fare
the
finanza
speakers and to the
per
audience. What
imprese
does
che
making
sono
finance
veramente ai primi
mean
passi
for
o addirittura
enterprises who are
progetti di
taking the first
innovazione che non sono
steps in the
neppure
field
imprese?
or innovation projects that are
Abbiamo già
not even
coniato dei
enterprises
termini, si
yet,
parla di
companies yet?
seed
We
capital, si parla di
talk
early
about
stage
seed
capital,
capital, early
si
stage
parla
capital.
di
We have new terms for this. We talk about financing to innovative projects that also follow the development of an entrepreneurial idea. Often when we talk about financing, we mean financing young enterprises, and we have many ways to do so. Within this framework, the title of our session is Bank, Finance and Insurance. Bank and insurance in particular are players that only recently have come closer to the world of innovation, because traditionally speaking, the institutional investors have basically dealt with less risky investments. But the world changes, and so do the investment logics within what we would call investment portfolios. I can manage a risk if I spray my eggs in different baskets. Diversifying risks is not always possible by entrepreneurs, but it can be done by investors. So what role can institutional investors have in the world of innovation financing, which also sees the presence of less institutional or formal investors, which are nonetheless necessary? Before leaving the floor to the speakers, I would like to leave the floor to my co-chair, who will also speak and hold a presentation, but maybe she would like to introduce the topic. Good morning, everybody. Today's session for my institution, that is Finance and Control in Friuli Venezia Giulia, is very important to keep in mind what the activities are, the activities that the players working in traditional and alternative finance can do. In the last years, they have developed new mechanisms to help innovative ideas to become companies, enterprises. It is a path that has many risks for all the elements that Andrea Tracogna has just listed, but we've realized by coming into contact with innovative ideas and enterprises, this region is particularly rich in that we can find a dialogue, we can find a way, and we also can give success to interesting projects when the subjects involved can become a network. We start from an idea, we start from an explanation. Then there's an evolution of this first idea, this first seed, in a project that is easier to finance and to acquire by financial institutions when and if there's some flanking to understanding what the business idea is and its ambition is. The speakers who will be with us today represent many nuances of the financial players present on the territory. So it will be interesting to listen to their vision, their prospects, and their ideas to support and make this very important activity develop.
Per queste parole di introduzione. Adesso noi seguiamo la
Thank you for
scaletta
the introduction.
nell'ordine
I'll
con cui
go through the
i relatori
agenda.
sono stati presentati anche nel programma. Faremo qualche
I'll follow the list you can
piccola
see
variazione
with some small
più in là,
variations
diciamo, per tenere conto anche dei
in
vincoli
the
che
morning
i
to
relatori hanno
account
in
for
termini di
the
presenza. Ma
commitments that
cominciamo
some
subito
speakers
con
have.
Antonio Salera, che
But
si
let's
collega
start
online
straight
e che
away with
rappresenta
Antonio
quelli
Salera,
che
who's
prima
going to be
definivo investitori
connected online
istituzionali, in
and who's one of
particolare
the
il
so-called
gruppo Generali,
institutional
per
finance
dare
and
maggiori dettagli
investors,
sul
the
ruolo
Generali Group.
rappresentato in generale da Antonio Salera.
You will,
Antonio è Senior
Antonio
Insurance
Salera
and
is
Asset
senior,
Management
senior
Researcher at
insurance
General Insurance
and
Asset
AM
Management from
researcher
Italy.
at General
Prego,
Insurance Asset
Antonio.
Management from Italy. Antonio, you have the floor.
Professor Tracogna, for the invitation and for the opportunity to be here. I will share my screen in a sec. Okay. With this contribution, I want to focus on how digital tech and biotech innovations are why are they a fundamental opportunity for the insurance industry? Because they are both an input for a more effective insurance offer and an investment opportunity. So I will look both at the insurance side and at the investment side. For what concerns the insurance side, we know that tech innovations allow not only for greater efficiency, but also open up in some cases, new market opportunities. And I will give you 3 very basic examples of that. The first one pertains to distribution, and it is embedded insurance. Embedded insurance consists in bundling insurance coverage within the purchase of a third-party product or service, and it allows insurance providers to rely on third-party vendors' distribution channels. So if we look at the importance of this channel, we see that for the 3 main players in the game, it is a sort of win-win-win situation, because the insurance company can expand his target population without any additional acquisition costs, because the distribution is entirely accomplished by the business partner. Business partners on their side, they can differentiate, attract or retain users by adding new services to their offer. Consumers, they have the chance to buy coverage, insurance coverage, at the more affordable conditions and with a higher degree of personalization, without additional research or administrative costs. So embedded insurance is quite a huge opportunity for the insurance sector. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the growth of this segment, projections see at a global level an industry that will move from the $45 billion in terms of gross written premiums in 2020 to over $700 billion in 2030. For Europe, it means a potential market of more or less $140 billion in terms of gross written premiums in a few years' time. The second example is health insurance, where digital health technologies and biotech technologies applied to healthcare sectors can help insurers to intercept a huge market potential. We all know the advantages of digital health and biotech innovations in this field. They can help increase accessibility by lowering health costs and overcoming physical distances. They can provide better quality by increasing diagnosis and treatment accuracy, and they can also improve the personalization degree of care through the availability, for example, of medical and behavioral electronic records. The insurance sector can leverage on these advantages like a sort of spillover effect and try to reach this huge market potential, which we measure usually through the out-of-pocket expenditure. Basically, out-of-pocket expenditure is how much households spend to meet their healthcare needs without being insured by public or private institutions. In OECD countries, this means more or less 3.3% of final household consumption. So it is a very huge opportunity for the insurance industry, especially in countries like Italy, France, Germany, or UK, where this kind of expenditure reveals a potential demand for long-term care or outpatient care services, where, of course, digital technologies can play a key role. The third example, I think it is self-explanatory, is cyber insurance. We know all that cybercrime is fast growing, and somehow is a side effect of this digital tech revolution. If we think at post-COVID remote working, we know that this has increased in turn company cyber risk, for example. This field is an increasing one. The cyber insurance market projection in terms of growth, these are numbers by Geneva associations, see in 3 years' time a market size that is double the figures of 2021. Let me move now to the investment side. And when we ask ourselves why these sectors can be an investment opportunity, first thing we look at performance. So we are in a listed universe here. And in this chart, you can see the performance, the volatility, and the Sharpe ratio, which is a performance corrected for risk for the healthcare sector in general and its main subsectors, among which you can find biotech and pharmaceuticals, for example. We performed this analysis both in a long time perspective, the last 20 years, and a year to date. If we look at the last column, what you see is that healthcare in general, but biotech in particular, overperformed the overall market, both in US and in Europe. So even corrected for risk, these sectors provide higher average returns. And this is per se a good reason to consider them as investment opportunity. But an additional reason is that these sectors show high resilience during, for example, drawdowns. In this top chart, you can see the loss in terms of performance among M2 European equity sectors during a number of recent drawdowns from Brexit, COVID, to the invasion of Ukraine. What you see is that the pharma and biotech column, which is the yellow one, show values that are lower than the average of all the other M2 sectors. So during drawdowns, these sectors show higher resilience, and this is a good second reason to consider them a good investment opportunity. How do we invest in these sectors? I give you an example from the general investment universe. We invest in healthcare, pharma, and biotech through, for example, the SRI Aging Population. It's a thematic fund that invests in sector benefiting from the mega trend of aging population. As you can see in the chart, the healthcare space is one of the three main key pillars of our investment strategy. So we came up with an investable universe of stocks belonging to this sector, and then we apply fundamental analysis to select and restrict this investable universe. And then on top of this, we apply ESG filters in order to select the most sustainable stocks and avoid ESG controversies. I conclude this contribution by looking at the non-listed universe, where we know that private equity and private debt are key financing and support engine tools for non-listed SMEs, even in bio and digital tech sectors. These are data from Invest Europe, 2021 data. You can see in the private equity spectrum that on the 140 billion euros invested via private equity channels in Europe last year, more than 40% of flows of funds went to ICT and biotech healthcare companies. So the good news is that large asset managers are moving and are shaping their product offerings towards these liquid markets, and that in particular long-oriented institutional investors like us are increasing the share of this kind of real private assets in their portfolio, because basically of three huge qualities. First, they show a good hedge against the inflation risk, which is quite key nowadays. Second reason is that they provide attractive yields because of the illiquidity premium. And third, they show low correlation with other more traditional asset classes, which is an additional plus because of the diversification of portfolios you were talking about before. As a group, we are investing in private equity, $11 billion euros at the first half of 2022. And of course, Again, we add ESG filters to the selection process in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of returns and avoid ESG, as much as possible, ESG controversies. Thank you.
Grazie Antonio. Direi che è stata una introduzione molto dettagliata di quelle che sono anche le nuove logiche di investimento di
Thank you. It was
generali che
a detailed presentation on the general aspects in terms of figures by someone who manages funds directly or indirectly for many hundreds of euros. We're even speaking about trillions. So it is a growing share of these resources that are allocated for high technology investments, also through financial instruments. And the finance even of a small company is made of risk and funds where there are investment requirements like those Antonio spoke about, must also have sustainability and other criteria. So when there are investments like this, generally is a subject, is a company to be considered. So now I'd like to give the floor, and I'm asking also Alessandra to make some comments if she wants, of course. So now I would give the floor now to Sergio Allegri, who is the manager, the gestor of the Lead Hersel Fund, because I think that funds for innovation must always have new requirements. So good morning, everyone.
Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Great, thanks. So first of all, let me thank Diego Bravar for the invitation. And when I was asked to give a message about finance and about the way I approach finance, I started to think, what is the message I can share with you? And I wanted to kind of bring in the recipe I use when I invest in technology, okay? And I wanted to keep it simple, so I wanted to kind of answer 3 questions by bringing to you 3 keywords, okay? Keywords that probably you have heard during these 2 days: innovation, knowledge, and talents. So before we had a giant like Generali, I work for Hersel, which is the largest private bank in Italy, but we own in terms of assets, it's 20 billion, and the fund I manage is around 100 million. So the size, it's an order of magnitude smaller than Generali, but still I do invest in technology. And why? Apologies, the mouse is not working correctly. So the first question I want to try to answer with you is why is worth it to invest in technology? And the reason why is because of innovation. Why do I say that? I have myself been involved in innovation for a pretty long time. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 30 years, so until the age of 30, I was a researcher. Before in physics, I graduated from Politecnico di Torino. Then I moved to Columbia University, where I started to work on quantum computers. Then I moved back to Europe to do a PhD. And there, most of my friends started to actually starting their own venture, their own startup. And there I could see how, this problem they were trying to solve. And these are problems that arise every day in our lives. We're trying to make our work better, okay? So innovation, and especially innovation in technology, are crucial to solve the problems that are arising every day, to alleviate pressure. Before we saw the amount of money that people have to spend out of pocket. This is something that Antonio showed in his slides. So alleviate pressure, both economical, but also, it can be other sort of pressure, and generate value. Not only economics. As a finance guy, I do look at economic value, but this is also value for the society. So being able to solve, new kind of problems, a new kind of issue, new kind of disease. The fund I manage invests in 3 verticals: digital, clean, and health tech. And I want to focus today on the health tech sector because most of what has been treated in this couple of days is related to the BioHighTech. And so this is where I want to put my focus. Here you can see some of the thematics within these 3 verticals where we invested. And so within the health tech sector, before Antonio was mentioning the aging population. So aging population is something that obviously is having an impact on our life. If I look at my generation of people, we are having children later in our life. And so this brings in problem because there is a big drop of fertility, for example, for women aged 35 and above. And femtech, so female technology, brings in solutions that can help those people, to overcome the problems that they have when they start to age. So this is the way we approach technology. We try to invest in technology. We try to identify trends, and then we try to identify which technologies are able to address those trends. And the recipe I have is this one, and it's based on these 4 pillars here. So how to invest in technology, but how do I invest in technology? And the key competence I see as a problem solver is knowledge. So whenever you are approaching a thematic investment in technology, you gotta have a thorough comprehension of what is the underlying technology. This is a physical term, so something that comes from physics, the boundary conditions. So what are the boundary conditions that defines your problem? And then obviously, because we are talking about business, what's the business model behind the technology, okay? So how they can make money out of it. And personally, this is because I have been involved with these kind of people until a few years ago. When I want to approach something new in which I want to invest, I try to understand, what's the science behind, okay? I'll make a very clear example. Maybe you are not aware of it, but, if you're taking my laptop charger here, this is made by silicon, which is the, main material for electronics. When you talk about recharging something, now there is a better material. Actually, there are 2. One is a silicon carbide, and the other one is gallium nitride, okay? This is something that has been existing since the age of silicon, but only nowadays we are able to work that material. We are able to process it, okay? And why this is important, I can make you an equivalence. Now, think about the bulb lamps that we used to have in our homes, and now the LEDs, okay? It drastically takes down the amount of energy that is dissipated into the environment. So it's a much better solution for charging situation. Obviously, these devices don't consume too much, but if you start to think about your electric bicycle, if you start to think about an electric vehicle, then it makes much more sense, okay? And this is something that I start to hear about when I was at a university, because during my PhD, the lab next to mine was working on this kind of materials. And then I started to see that things were ramping up in the public market. And this is where I started, to kind of put my interest and investigate, and then they ended up in my portfolio. Then you want to talk to startups. And here I'll make you an example, because I'm going to talk later, which are the 3 fields that I see as a really hot topic for the health tech sector. I had a friend that started a startup that was once a 3-people startup. Now it's more than 100 people, and it's a company that is valued at more than 200 million of euros. They work on biopsy, something that is called spatial biology. So when you do biopsy of a cancer tissues, what you do, you slice it as a salami, okay? And then you put some markers, so to color the cells that have some genetic deviation, okay? And then you try to understand which mutation are of those genes, and then you kind of identify the best solution for the chemotherapy or for the therapy that the patient has to take. This startup has started to, and this is, the old method is you slice it, you color it, and then you throw it away. And you don't get more information on the same sample, which is very important. So what they started to do, they started to automate this process to multiplex, so that on the same salami slice, and sorry for the if I'm trivial here, but what they did on the salami slice was they're able now to read more than 40 kind of information, okay? And this is really important to define the tumor microenvironment and to provide the oncologist the information that he needs to start maybe, you know, an immunotherapy treatment. So this is something that you want to talk with startups, because startups nowadays, when you make an investment, they are really the source of innovation. Then call it scientific committee. I have what I call comitato scientifico, call it advisory board. But even for public investment, as I do, you need to talk to experts, because you cannot be an expert. And as I said, knowledge is the key competence when you want to make investment in technology. You want to talk to experts that really understand the technology behind and the market behind. So try to be surrounded by people who understand thoroughly, again, what's behind. And then last but not least, obviously industry and institution. What the EuroBioHighTech call policy, it's really important to understand, you know, where the money from institutions, so where the decision are leading, okay? So I make an example, PNRR, we know is going to invest a huge amount of money for clean technologies and also for digitalization. So this is something clear. It paves the way for big trends ahead of us. And last but not least, these are my 3 hotspots for the future. And it might be counterintuitive, but why it is important to talk about talents? It is important to talk about talents because all this new field, I mentioned before, spatial biology, you know, accessing more information to, you know, for personalized cancer treatment, but also digital pathology. So using artificial intelligence and medical imaging for a precise and faster diagnosis. This is really important because the problem that we are going to face as our society is going to face is a lack of talent. Okay, the baby boomers are getting older. So in Italy, but this is also true pretty much everywhere, we are not going to have enough doctors. We're not going to have enough nurses. We're not going to have enough specialists, you know, to treat people. And this is an issue, and this is where technology can come and help us. These are 3 fields. Digital pathology means simply, you know, having an MRI image, having a software helping the doctor, the pathologist, to identify those spots, the area of interest, before spending too much time looking for the image in itself. And so these are all fields. And the last one is biophysics for proteomics. Now we understood that proteins play a pivotal role in our health, and understanding how proteins works is really important. And this is something where biophysics can help a lot. And why am I mentioning this? Because the area of Trieste, I've done my PhD in Switzerland, and in Switzerland there were a gigantic amount of people coming from the area of Trieste, and I had the chance to visit the place, but just for fun, like Carnevale di Muggia and this kind of events is full of extremely talented people, especially in the field of computational science. Being computational science to material science, being computational science for biophysics, being computational science for discovering new materials, and so on. So before I heard the co-chair, Alessandra Ramani, mention cross-fertilization, and Antonio mentioned the word of spillover. Here I use the word cross-contamination, which is basically creating an area where you can use different competencies and you can nurture these competencies, you know, to generate the next wave of talents. And these are those people that are going to solve the problems that we're going to have in the future and are going to build up the technology that we're going to need in the future. And I think that's it from my side. And if you have any question, I left there my email address, so you can contact me.
Grazie Sergio per questa presentazione molto competente.
Very interesting. It highlights that the world of finance and innovation is populated of people like Sergio who have excellent qualifications, both in terms of managerial and economic profile and knowledge. Finance, differently from what you may think, has not a greedy function. It has a gready function to projects that are usually carried out by non-experts. That is not true. Finance is represented by funds that invest with a long-term perspective, and this could be the missing link to transform an optimistic idea into implementation. I'd like to thank Sergio again, and now the floor goes to Tommaso Baldissera Pacchetti, who will present an innovative way to finance projects in new fields like those we are exploring today. So, thank you so much. I'll talk about a concept of financing that not so many know. My name is Tommaso Baldissera, CEO of CrowdFundMe, and we collect capitals because we understood that there is an equity gap in company financing. If on the one hand it is easier to collect small funds to launch a startup, we're talking about 10, 50,000 euro, then on the other hand there is the venture capital and private equity world, and they allocate a few million euros or even dozens of millions, and then there is the financing to SMEs and startups that is lacking in Italy.
Eccolo qua, che va dai 100-200.000 euro fino ai 2-3 milioni. Ecco, queste fasi qua
ranges from 100-200,000 euros to 1-2 million euros. Companies need capital to grow. They are already on the market, and they need capital to accelerate the growth. But this is a phase in which the risk is still too high, and in terms of revenues and accounting KPIs, they are already they are yet still too risky. I wanted to show you the portal rather than a presentation, so by browsing the portal you can see what we do. We are a showcase, a meeting point. We have 750,000 euros on average as funding in 2022, together with a large investment company in Italy. We collected millions of euros, and then we think this is a very important instrument. In Italy, the players of the investors in startups, they are growing. In 2021 in Italy, there was a collection of 1,500,000 euros, when in Spain it was 13 billion. So you can see that there is a room for growth. I want, of course, to mention Great Britain, United States, and Israel, because we are talking about dozens or hundreds of billions of investment. So we are offering this to retail investors. We think that a diversified portfolio, a small share of investment that can be defined as the new economy as it was in the 70s, 80s, where everyone were entrepreneurs and they were asking for funds to banks. And today things have changed, but entrepreneurs in Italy want to create R&D and a new company, but they also need to change investors. because small companies usually do not receive funds from banks, and the retail sector can be a nice alternative. And investing in a portal like crowdfundme allows everyone, even the man in the street, to become a partner of a startup. We collected about 90 million euro for small issuers for a total of 24 million investment. This is a listed portal and we are transparent. We select our issues. We have about 80 issuers per month, and we launch 4 or 5 of them. We have the a wide range of companies. We have a brewery in Llano Sabbiadoro in this region, and then we have a BioValley, and BioValley collected risk capital for a total of 1,600,000 euros. And it should be about 68 investors, but also debit capital. This portal also allows you to diversify the need for collection. So maybe a company that's more structured than a startup can diversify the investment in risk capital and debit capital. We can still focus on risk capital, so financing in an equity campaign. We can scroll down the page. We can see the presentation of the project. We see Mr. Glauser, who will speak later. Then we have a information sheet, a profile. People who invest online really, on average, read the website for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And then we have after the presentation of the product to where to invest, we also need attachments. So if a person decides to invest, they can have all the documents, the statute, the articles of association, etc., so that they understand what kind of company it is. Then we can see how the investment works. The company carries out a due diligence procedure with our team. 4 out of 8 go online, and then the collection begins. There is a minimum or a maximum for a capital increase, and investors can invest a share from a minimum of 20,000 euro in the case of BioValley, up to reaching the minimum goal of the company, which needs to achieve to meet the requirements for the industrial plan. It's very quick to invest. It takes 5 minutes the first time and 30 seconds the second, and you can send the money through a bank transfer. So you send the money to the bank account of the company. At the end of the campaign, the investor becomes shareholders and can participate in the company life. When we're talking about in crowdfunding, you need to remember that these are high-risk investments, but it can also have a return that is proportional. So you're investing in young companies with a high potential. If you invest in the stock exchange, you may expect a small return over 4 or 5 years. Here, we expect a high growth with a high potential. So you make your investment, then you follow the updates of the companies that are given by entrepreneurs, and then in 4, 5, 6 years, you take stock of the situation, and then you see what happens for long-term investments. What else can I say?
Ecco, secondo me questo lo dicevo anche in un intervento ieri sera, investire
I was saying this last
tramite
night.
equity funding in questo genere di società, secondo me più di
Investing
qualsiasi altra
through equity
grossa banca
crowdfunding in
o
this
altro
type of
istituto
companies, more than
finanziario
any
ci
other banks or
permetterebbe
banking
chiaramente andare a
institute,
raccogliere
allows
capitali
us
da parte dei
to
retail e
collect
scaricarli nell'economia reale.
capital
Andare a investire in questo genere di
from
strutture vuol dire
investors
andare a investire
and
su
uh,
imprenditori,
unload them
crescere
onto
il
the
nostro
real
territorio, ma comunque
society.
CFM
It
ha
means
creato circa 3.500 posti di lavoro grazie ai capitali raccolti.
helping
Investono in
local
fondi
entrepreneurs. We
per
generated
capitali che
3,500
probabilmente non
jobs with the
sono
money
capitali realmente
collected,
bancari,
and
ma realmente per
these
raccogliere capitali
companies
più
can
importanti. Abbiamo sentito parlare
really
prima
become able
il collega
to
di
collect
FL parlare di banca generali.
higher
Ecco, diciamo
capitals.
che noi
We
ci
were
mettiamo
talking
in
about
questo
this with our
sistema, noi mettiamo la società
colleagues
in
of
una
Ersel and Banca
condizione che
Generali.
poi dopo andiamo a
We put a
upsell
company
e poi dopo banca generali in un'ordine proprio di grandezza di investimenti medi,
to
di
grow,
andare a raccogliere
and
capitali
then
importanti per
interface
private markets.
with
Prima però ci vuole tutta una parte di
private market
crescita delle
collection.
società e
But
noi ci
first, you
poniamo
need
proprio in
that
quella che
phase
definisco
where the
una
companies
equity gap,
grow.
raccogliere
So
capitali
that
per
is,
mettere queste società
we put
in
ourselves in
condizione
that equity gap
realizzare poi
to
dopo a
put the
raccogliere
companies in the condition to
capitali importanti,
collect
che possono
large
sostanzialmente
capitals,
coinvolgerli.
a few dozens, millions, to
Grazie
then
mille
face the
per
market.
questa chiosa finale che ci aiuta a capire come
Thank you. Thank you
i
for
fondi
your
di crowdfunding
conclusion as well.
sono un anello all'interno di una catena
That helps us
complessa di
understand on
relazioni
how
che si
financing is
sviluppano
just
e
a
come
ring
possiamo
in
essere
a
anche
broader
facilmente per
chain,
avvicinare il
and
mondo degli
how
investitori
you can
istituzionali e
help
tradizionali
bring
a
closer the
fenomeni
traditional
innovativi che
world
non
of
hanno ancora
institutional
disponibilità di risorse
investors to innovative
per
phenomena
la
that
raccolta dei capitali
have
soggetti
not
di rischio.
solved the problem of
Poi,
risky
a questo
capitals, the collection
punto
of risky
si intende
capitals
verso una piccola
yet.
inversione di
At this
programma per
point,
cogliere crediti con i vincoli
I need to make a
che
small
americani
variation
anzi
in
tramite il lavoro di Giuseppe
agenda.
Razza. Quindi prego
Um,
Giuseppe,
Giuseppe
a te la
Razza,
parola.
please, you have the floor.
L'etichetta con cui lo abbiamo presentato è molto
The
articolata. Io
label with
chiederei a
which
Giuseppe
we
di
decided
raccontarci
to
anche appunto
introduce Giuseppe
il
Razza
suo
is
ruolo
very
all'interno di tutte
complex,
queste
and I
attività
would
che
like
hanno come
him to
leitmotiv
tell us his role within
appunto
these activities.
sostenimento e
And
circular
the
economy.
red thread is sustainability and circular economy. Well, first of all, thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Brava and the organizing committee for the invitation. I'm very glad to take part in this conference. I currently work for the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Germany, and I flank some ministers in the Balkan area to develop circular economy projects in the Balkans from an institutional point of view, also to develop enterprise incubators and to support with the best tools possible the development of these innovative companies. The idea of my speech, having listened also to the preceding presentations, the topic is very articulated. It depends on the availability of the investors with a different type of funds available, and depending on the specific needs from the small to the middle-sized to the large enterprise to develop projects containing innovative elements. The basic idea and what is particularly interesting in Trieste and in the region in general, because as Mr. Brava always likes to say, and as we all know, this region in Italy can be considered a strong innovator, a region with peculiar characteristics and with a great innovation potential, as we have among us enterprise incubators who which gather different sized enterprises with different financing needs. I would like to introduce an idea that could aid to find financial support to enterprise incubators. These incubators can both be private and public with public-private partnership, and they find funding for the development to small, medium-sized and large enterprises. I would also like to talk about financing options. As for the incubators for investors, depending on the different types of the different needs and of the different companies. This investors incubator, funds incubator, can be diversified according to the needs of the companies, that is, to have their intellectual property of the innovative idea guaranteed, and the governance and enterprise control while growing, which is not an easy task. When we think of operations while the company grows and the capital grows, and you have shareholders that can make you lose control in company terms. A player I suggest for this investors incubator, which I find particularly interesting, can be an alternative investment fund, which can gather all different kinds of funds and investors, be them institutional, private, or public investors, depending on the different forms of development you can find within the incubator for innovative enterprises. So financing different types, different kinds. As we have listened so far for crowdfunding, for example, for a smaller dimension of enterprises, and other institutional investors that can finance larger business ideas. What is interesting in the alternative investment fund is that it can be a proper fund, opening a proprietary investment fund means managing capitals coming from other financing and funds, be them institutional or not. It implies managing the fund for a certain number of years, depending on sub-funds and depending on the different ideas that arise in the business incubator. Within the fund, we could foresee both financing to fund individual startups, individual researchers through crowdfunding or other means to guarantee the growth of smaller enterprises, and at the same time larger investment operations with institutional investments for mergers, acquisitions, or opening up the business or entrepreneurial activity. In particular, in sectors such as digital high-tech, energy high-tech, and BioHighTech, which represent the core of this conference. These funds are particularly interesting. They can fund small, medium-sized, and large enterprises, as I've already said, as I've already mentioned. So their variety covers the full spectrum of dimensions, and the same applies to geographical areas, because it could cover the growth of enterprises not only locally, but also at a national, European, international, and global level. I have to say that in this specific period of time, some peculiarities of these funds are very interesting to guarantee the innovation growth and innovation leadership, so as to reaffirm European leadership in innovations taking place in these areas, but also to curb the dependency we have on specific sectors, the dependencies we have with other countries, for example, Russian and Asiatic markets. Why do I say this? I could give you some examples of the development of the pharmaceutical sector or the biomedical sector. For instance, projects that are particularly innovative and deserve a long growth path. One of the examples that comes to my mind and that I've recently analyzed is the production of heparin, for example, which is currently taken from pig's liver, and the great world producers are Chinese producers for the Western market who import heparin to fight also coronavirus or other diseases, are strongly dependent on China's supplies. We've seen this recently with the pandemic. Developing heparin in bioterms, so bioheparin, for example, without using pig spleen, means reducing our dependency and producing it at a European level. This project that starts from an experimental idea. I listened to a beautiful, innovative idea yesterday to fight cancer, for example. The idea is to develop such initiatives, and it comes from experimental activities that grow industrially and needs a strong growth in market terms to flank, to accompany this type of path within one single financial project is very useful and can be guaranteed by the alternative investment funds. As I was saying, a clear advantage is also the fact that the governance of the fund can be performed by the same people who open up the fund. So when we have a business incubator, the manager of the business incubator can also manage the fund, so they can have the governance of all situations, and they can have the tranquility, they can manage funds and capitals so that they can pursue in parallel without having any merging or acquisition risks. We've had experiences here in going in this direction. And one last thing I would like to remark is that beyond the possibility to open and manage an alternative investment fund to accompany the growth of a model gathering a system such as the Trieste one, not only one type of enterprises, but a wide range of innovative enterprises.
Ho avviato anche un'iniziativa qua, in particolare nell'area triestina, che
I've launched an initiative here in the Trieste area that is to gather enterprises to create an international hub in financial and insurance terms that could guarantee the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, together with a system making innovation and research, or to have a system that makes finance too. Specifically, we've identified European Bank for Investment, one of the most important players that can guarantee a financial participation in the development of these innovative systems. We've managed to bring together many enterprises working in the region and in Italy to propose the application of Trieste as a thematic seed subsidiary of the European Investment Bank to finance biotech, high-tech and digital high-tech projects. This could be very interesting because it could guarantee the presence of the institutional investors such as Generali and other players, but we could also have the physical presence of institutional investors in a reality such as the Trieste one, which is strong on innovation. Thank you, Giuseppe Razza. Also because we are tight on our schedule, so I'll leave the floor to who's Francesco Ceruti, General Manager, Italian Tech Alliance, who will tell us what the role this alliance could play in supporting innovation projects could be.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. This is the third year that I have been invited, and I'm still forced to speak remotely, and I hope that the next time, if I am invited, I'll be able to physically be in attendance. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Mr. Bravad and Mr. Loser. I'll try to give you an horizontal view on the market of innovation in Italy. Both Sergio, Tommaso, Giuseppe were very precise in telling their point of view, building a very complete overview. A couple of words on me and my company. Italian Tech Alliance is an alliance among the main operators of the technological sector in Italy. It was founded in 2019 by a set of venture capital funds in Italy, and now it has about 250 associates. So you have venture capitals, funds, venture capital family office, and the main startups of the Italian ecosystem. So I'm glad that the range of companies active in life science is very much present in our alliances, also, both in terms of funds and startups and innovative SMEs in our country. The Italian market, we need to be very clear, is very small, much smaller than many other European countries. In 2021, for the first time in Italy, we had, for the first time, 1 billion euros was exceeded for the investment in startup. This figure can be high at first sight, but it becomes less if you compare with other countries. In Spain, it was 6 billion, in France 11, in Germany 13. This means that on one side, our country is late. On the other side, we have a margin for growth, because this is a market, and I'm talking about international investors. This is a market in which you have the same value of other markets, because we cannot imagine that in Italy there is less talent, less ideas than other countries, but at the same time you have less competition, so you have more margin for growth, margin for return, for profits, if you can really identify the single out the companies. So I was mentioning 1,250 million. In 2020, it was 750 euros. So there was a growth, and this is confirmed from the figures of the first semester of 2022, which has been the most semester so far, with about 1 billion euro of investment only in the first semester. And this has been the first time that it has happened in one semester. I have to say that the investment in the life science sector have always been important, considerable. In 2020, there were about 100 million, and even in 2021, this year, they amounted about 110 million for a total of 22 rounds. So what has this growth implied? Certainly, this was thanks to COVID, because of course COVID has been dramatic, but in general it shifted the focus on innovative companies, and in particular those enterprises that are active in research and life science. This is not a novelty. Both in the United States and in Europe, the COVID vaccine was firstly approved by innovative startups, small companies like BioNTech, and this has increased the attention of the public opinion and investors on this type of companies. As the previous speaker said, investment in life science are long-term investments. Before you reach the go-to-market, passing through the research phase, the clinical trial, you need 10, 12 years. So, of course, you need very patient investors. Sometimes in the Italian market, this is not so common, as much as common as in the other countries. So going back to life sciences, 10 years ago, there were no venture capital funds in life science in Italy. Only in the past 12 months, so since when we met last time, there have been 4 specialized funds, in addition to those generalistic ones that also deal with life science. So there's a lot of attention, but you need to contextualize this in a scenario in which our country is a bit late. So it is necessary to make a reference to the political elections, the general election of the 25th of September. There is a set of laws that provide less incentives in terms of life science investment. In our alliance, we are explained to all our partners and that there is a set, we have produced a set of bills, proposals, legal proposals that are that can be implemented in a very small time. So, to be brief, we have requested a tax credit reform for the benefit of startups and small medium enterprises, but not just in the rate of the tax credit, but also the functioning of the credit tax credit that cannot actually be used by startups because the go-to-market phase is very delayed. Then we believe that, and the operators tell us that it is important, we believe that a structural reform is needed in the time of the access and implementation of clinical trials. They are regulated by a law from 2018. We requested changes, amendments that can help this kind of tax that has an impact on the time frame of the go-to-market phase of a product. Another important thing that was already mentioned during previous speeches is the improvement of technological transfer. So the connections between university, research centers, and companies that in our very often in our country, those players don't talk to one another because they don't have any incentives to do so. So we believe that to reach a step forward, to make a leap, and we think there is the potential to do so, to be competitive at the European level, it is to favor the connections among those players that are in the same field. And finally, I would like to make an appeal to the many investors that are interested in life science. It is a very particular moment, and we all know the reasons for the economic and social life of the country. And personally and professionally, we strongly believe that one of the keys to make the economy restart is to invest more in startups and innovative SMEs. For the collectivity, they are often associated to the entrepreneurial adventure of a young boy in a garage, but this is not the real situation. The reality in 2022, startups are able to create well-being, wealth, and jobs for many professionals that very often are forced to go abroad or to start careers that are less rewarding, can contribute less to the development of the person as a human being, but also as a professional, as well as the development of the country overall. So thank you so much for the invitation, and I hope to be with you next year in Trieste, so wish you good luck. Thank you, Francesco. Thank you for your final appeal. And in hard times, there is a need to make the right investments, and the sector that you talked about, but also the young spirit that should guide the evolution of our economy and our systems in the future. It was also important to mention the figures because sometimes the figures are bad, but they really show the gap to be filled. So thank you also for the reference to the ecosystem of innovation that is not only made of innovative projects and finance, but also of other economic agents which are innovative, and all the research system, public and state one, so universities and research centers. So thank you so much. We don't have much time now, so I'm going to ask Alessandra Ramani to close the session. And in addition to our talk, to have some final conclusions. So I invite here Giovanni Loser for his presentation.
Good morning. My name is Giovanni Loser. I'm CEO of BioValley Investments Partner. I could tell you so many things. This session is about finance, and therefore I will tell you about how finance helped develop an entrepreneurial project that was born in 2017 and that today, in 2022, at the end of 2021, had a consolidated turnover of over 8 million euro and an EBITDA of approximately 800,000 euro and net equity amounting to 30 million euro. The entrepreneurial idea was developed thanks to financing from the outside.
Praticamente diciamo un attimo prima che cosa noi facciamo. Allora, noi siamo
I'll tell you what we
un gruppo
do.
industriale integrato che opera
We
nel
are
mondo
an integrated
della
industrial
salute
group. We're in the healthcare
siamo specializzati in
sector.
investimenti nel settore
We are
bioetico
specialized in
e
BioHighTech
in
investments
società innovative operanti nelle
and
scienze della vita,
in
della
innovative
medicina
companies
e
working in life
della digital.
sciences,
Siamo
medicine,
anche
and the
una
digital realm.
SME innovativa
We are also an innovative
nonché
SME,
una società farmaceutica
as
e
well as a
abbiamo
pharmaceutical
una
company.
rete distributiva diretta
And we
di
have a distribution network, a
farmaci
direct
e
distribution
anche di
network of
apparecchiature
drugs
medicali.
and medical devices.
Sostanzialmente ci siamo organizzati in 3 aree. Abbiamo
We
l'area
are
del
organized into
biomed
3
che
areas: the biomed department,
riferimento alla società Logic
with
ci
the
sono delle altre partecipazioni
subsidiary Logic
sempre
and
dello stesso
other
settore e in più abbiamo anche la distribuzione
minority
Maker che
participation, minority investments in other
per la preparazione
sectors
di
of the company.
chemioterapici che è stato
And we also have a
sviluppato
robot
capogruppo.
that
Poi operiamo nel
produces
settore del biotech e del pharma, sostanzialmente
chemotherapeutics.
abbiamo due
Then
principali
we
attività
operate in
all'esporto,
biotech and
la
pharma,
società
in
di
pharmaceutical.
riferimento di cui abbiamo la maggioranza che è la Serichim
One
e
is our
poi
subsidiary,
abbiamo la
where we have a
distribuzione
majority
di
stake,
farmaci innovativi nel
Serikim,
settore delle malattie rare.
and then we have the
Infine, il terzo
distribution of
settore
innovative
è quello del
pharmaceuticals.
BioICT
The third sector is ICT,
che è sviluppato attraverso sia i servizi dell'incubatore del BIC, di cui abbiamo la
that was developed
competenza
thanks to
assoluta,
the services of the BIC
attraverso poi
incubator,
delle
where we
partecipazioni
have a majority stake, and
attraverso appunto
through
degli accordi per andare in maggioranza. La
stakes.
più principale ad oggi è la società multimedia che
And the most important subsidiary is Multimedia, that develops software for laboratories and clinics.
Come vi dicevo, un
The group,
fatturato a fine
as I was
2021
saying,
superiore agli 8
at the end
milioni
of
di euro.
2021
La
had a
governance
turnover that
è
exceeded 8
assicurata
million
dall'essere
euro.
diritti
The
particolari
governance is
alla
granted
società
through
BioValley Group
particular
SpA, che poi è
rights
stata
to the
registrata
shareholder BioValley Group SPA
incorporato la BIP
that
stessa e abbiamo
incorporated
poi un patto di sindacato
BIP,
con
as we will
la
see, and then we
Friulia
have a syndicate
per
agreement with
l'organizzazione.
Friulia for controlling the company.
A fine 2021 avevamo
At the end of
56
2021, the
Ora,
group had
tutto
56
questo come è
employees.
stato possibile?
How
Vi racconterò
has all this been
velocemente,
possible?
soprattutto
I will tell you
evidenziando quelli
briefly
che sono
something
stati le
about
tappe
our history
fondamentali per
and the
la
fundamental
raccolta
steps
delle fonti di finanziamento.
to obtain funding.
La prima operazione è quella che
The first
tradizionalmente si
step
chiama l'operazione Family and Friends,
is the family and friends
dove
operation,
il
so it is
terzo
usually called,
fondatore, che è
where
l'ingegner
the
Bravar, ha
founding shareholder, Diego Bravar,
ha conferito, versato un importo molto importante e intorno a questo primo innesto di
allocated
capitale
a consistent sum of
presso
money,
soci
and then
prevalentemente privati il
collected
ulteriore capitale e quindi nel 2017
more
è stato
capital,
lanciato
more
questo
equity.
aumento di
And
capitale di
in
7,1
2017,
milioni di
we
euro.
launched a capital
Questo ha
increase
consentito nel
of
tempo di
7.1 million
iniziare,
euro,
diciamo, a costruire il gruppo
which
con
enabled
delle
us to start
acquisizioni
building
e
the group
partecipazioni.
through the acquisition
Qui
of
siamo nel
investments.
2017. L'attività è
So we arrive at
continuata
2017. The
nel
activity
2018
continued in
sono
2018.
state acquisite ulteriori partecipazioni, nonché
We acquired further
abbiamo
stakes
cominciato anche a
and
curare la parte di sviluppo di progetti,
started
perché
concentrating
siamo
on
comunque
the
un'azienda
development of
innovativa e
projects
comunque
because we are an innovative
aiutiamo
SME,
anche le nostre
as I was saying,
associate a
and
sviluppare
we also
progetti di
help
ricerca
our
e abbiamo
subsidiaries
fatto un
to
primo
develop
accordo con
research projects.
l'ICBHT
So
per lo
we
sviluppo di farmaci biosimilari
signed
nel
a
settore del
first
silico.
agreement with
Nel
ICGB
2019
for the
abbiamo
distribution of
completato
biosimilars.
l'aumento di capitale, quindi è
In
stato
2019,
sottoscritto e
we
versato l'aumento di 7,1 milioni di euro. Abbiamo
agreed
cominciato
the
continuato ad
capital
acquisire
increase.
nuove
We
partecipazioni
kept on
e
acquiring new
abbiamo nel
stakes,
2019,
and in
circa a metà anno,
2019,
iniziato una prima attività che noi consideriamo anche di tipo industriale di
we
distribuzione
launched
di
a first
farmaci
industrial activity that was the distribution
per
of
il
drugs
mercato italiano.
for the
Nel
Italian market.
2020 abbiamo
In 2020,
ulteriormente raccolto risorse sul capitale e questa
we
volta,
collected
grazie a
further
crowdfunding, ci
funds
siamo
on the
aperti
capital,
al mercato e quindi
and
abbiamo
we
raccolto più di 1,7
opened up
milioni di
to the
euro di
market
equity,
by
con i
collecting
quali
over
abbiamo continuato
1.7 million equity.
l'acquisizione di partecipazioni,
We
ma
continue
anche
to
abbiamo
acquire stakes
depositato una
in
domanda di
companies,
brevetto per
and
un
we requested
repurposing,
a
significa insomma per una
patent for a repurposing,
ridefinizione
for a
dell'utilizzo di un farmaco che
redefinition
noi
of the
distribuivamo
use of a
a
drug we
beneficio
distributed
delle patologie del Covid, brevetto che poi
for
quest'anno abbiamo
COVID
anche
pathologies.
ottenuto. Nel
And this year we
2021
obtained the patent. In
ulteriore
2021,
attività di raccolta e anche è
we
entrato il
collected
socio Friulia
more stakes,
conferendo
and
l'incubatore BIC e quindi il nostro
we
capitale
received
per
Friulia as
conseguenza
a
natura e per
stakeholder
un
with
versamento cash è aumentato di
capital,
altri 5
both
milioni di
cash
euro.
and in
La cosa
kind,
interessante qui,
raised of
ripeto,
further 5 million euro.
io
What is
sempre in tema di
interesting in this
finanza, è
respect,
che
always talking about finance,
i sottoscrittori dell'aumento di
is that
crowdfunding, quindi sottoscrittori chiamiamoli terzi rispetto alla
the
zoccolo
third
iniziale di
parties who
Seven
invested in
Friends,
the
hanno
crowdfunding,
prevalentemente
let's say
sottoscritto
third
stake.
party
Quindi come
compared
dire,
to the first
noi
step, that is
abbiamo non
family and
solo fatto
friends,
un'operazione attraverso una piattaforma, ma una volta che i soci
we
sono
launched
entrati
an
in azienda hanno
operation
seguito
through a
l'ulteriore
platform,
funzionamento di capitale e questo è un po' il meccanismo
and
fondamentale
our
per
shareholders
beneficiare di
made a capital
finanza
subscription.
quando si portano
And this is
evidentemente
the
idee
correct
risultati.
mechanism to benefit from
Il 2021 è
funding
stato
and
un anno
financing when you've
molto
got
intenso perché
results.
chiaramente
2021
abbiamo
was
non
a
solo
particularly
continuato
intense year.
l'attività di acquisizione di
We
partecipazioni,
kept on
ma anche abbiamo
acquiring
cominciato anche a porre le
shares,
basi per quello che
stakes,
sarebbe
but
stato
we've also laid
il
the foundation
2022, quindi con
for
accordi per
2022
l'acquisizione di ulteriori aziende nel
through
settore degli
agreements for the
ICT e anche
acquisition
nel
of other
settore
bio
biomedicale.
ICT
Non
and
solo, ma
biomedical
poi abbiamo
companies. Not only
iniziato la
this,
distribuzione di un ulteriore farmaco e abbiamo
we've
anche iniziato la
also
distribuzione
launched the distribution
del
of
chemo maker.
one further
Arriviamo
drug
così
and
al
of chemo maker.
2022 dove
Here we are,
anche per quello che diceva
2022,
Tommaso prima, abbiamo
where
deciso
also
di
because of what Tommaso said
diversificare fonte di
before, we decided to
finanziamento da banche
diversify
e quindi siamo
the
andati attraverso una
financing
piattaforma a fare
sources,
un'operazione di mini bond
and
che è
we
stata
launched
poi
a mini bond operation
prevalentemente
through the platform
sottoscritta da
that
un
was
investitore
basically subscribed by
e
an investor.
abbiamo ulteriormente non solo diciamo consolidato le attività in essere, ma anche
So
abbiamo
we've
cominciato ad
consolidated
eseguire
our
nuovi prodotti
ongoing
che nascono
activities.
sempre dal
Plus, we
know-how
started
presente all'interno del
distributing
gruppo
new products
e,
developed thanks to the
e
know-how
poi
we have
abbiamo,
within a
questo
group.
non c'è scritto nella presentazione, comunque abbiamo acquisito le
And
partecipazioni per le quali avevamo
we've
firmato
acquired
preliminari nel corso
the
del
stakes
nel 2021.
for which we had signed
Questo
preliminary
tema,
contracts in
diciamo, di
2021.
acquisizione di partecipazioni, di
The acquisition of
presentazioni, è molto
stakes,
importante perché per poter
a
raccogliere
very
finanza bisogna anche
important
avere un
thing,
track
because
record dove uno
to
fa vedere che
get
quello che annuncia
financing, you
lo
need
realizza.
a track
Noi avevamo
record
detto che
where
avremmo avuto
you can show that
reputazione
you
in
can do
determinati
what
assetti della
you plan
società
to we announced a structure for our society, and we met all our commercial and industrial targets to reach our turnover objectives. I would like to show you this slide, which gives you a brief overview of what it means to get funding and what a company concretely does. Here you can see a map of what we have to do to grow in the next few years. We have our core enterprises. One column refers to organic growth, that is the development of turnover for the drugs we currently distribute. Organic growth is to develop the probe business and consumable and spare parts and clinical engineering. This is the core business. Then we want to keep on doing business for all contrasts for the development for pharmaceutical companies and the optimization of their processes, incubation for organic growth, and in our new acquisition that was completed this year, the development of the distribution of products for measurement by exploiting nanotechnologies, both at an environmental and industrial level, and also for biosciences. What are the things that we can add up for the biotech sector, the distribution of a new drug? This will happen foreseeably by the end of this year. The distribution of a method to extract DNA, RNA, a very interesting product which permits to make analysis also in the food and agro-high-tech sector, for the biomed sector, the distribution of chemomaker, and this case it's a very interesting thing because we do this directly through sub-distributors, but also through with players in the field, producing insulators, for example, or partners producing software to manage pharmaceutical products in hospitals. As for new activities, we have international tests and Serikin with the development of a biosimilar to insulin. And new compounds we found out by developing the biosimilar drug. Here we also developed the productive process for one of the drug we produced, so we could be the supplier of our supplier. As for BIC, we concentrate on the ICT for companies, and as for the new acquisition, Scheffer, we acquired a 60% stake, is about nanomedicine. I'll try to be even quicker than this. We maintain our attention open to develop our acquisition and investment activities. We've consolidated 2 acquisitions, one in the biomed sector and one in the bio-ICT, Scheffer for biomed and CB Sistemi, a subsidiary of Multimedia.
nello sviluppo di partnership per
The logic
realizzare un
will
processo di
concentrate on the
internazionalizzazione
development of
effettivamente
partnerships for
focalizzato
any
sull'Africa.
internationalization process.
Serikim creerà un ulteriore sviluppo della
Looking at
partnership con
Africa,
l'ICGB, nel
Serikim
senso che
will further
l'ICGB in questo
develop its
momento sta
partner
anche
with
acquisendo una parte di
ICGB,
una tecnologia di cui noi abbiamo sviluppato la fase
who's
successiva
in charge
e
of a
quindi questo
part of
potrebbe
a
creare dei
technology
vantaggi
of which we've
all'ICGB
developed
e ai
the
paesi che
subsequent
collaborano con
stage. So it
l'ICGB
could be
di
a
velocizzare lo
win-win
sviluppo di
situation for
quanto è
both
stato acquistato.
ICGB
E
and countries
la cessione poi delle
collaborating with
tecnologie
this
di ricerca vuol
institution.
dire che tutto quello che noi abbiamo sviluppato ad oggi nel settore dei
Whatever we've
biosimilari
developed
può
so
essere
far
ceduto a
in the
terzi
biosimilar
per
fields
la
can be
realizzazione di impianti di produzione.
seized to third
L'ulteriore
parties for
BIC,
production
oltre allo
plants.
sviluppo, come dicevamo, dei
BIC,
servizi tecnologici, c'è anche
beyond
il
the development of
fatto di
technological
partecipare a
services,
metodi internazionali per
what is important is also the participation of
l'additramento dello stesso.
national network
Infine,
for
siccome siamo anche
getting
un'azienda alla fine
certification.
innovativa, noi abbiamo in sviluppo,
Last
cioè
but
abbiamo
not
sviluppato
least, we
progetti
are
per 2
also
bionanosensori
developing
e
projects for
per
2
2 bioalgoritmi
bio-nanosensors
predittivi, di
and
cui
2
uno verrà
predictive
recentemente
bioalgorithms,
rilasciato
one of which
grazie alla collaborazione che abbiamo
will
impostato
be launched thanks to the
con l'ospedale
collaboration
Maggiore, l'Università di
we
Trieste
have with
e un
Ospedale
algoritmo che
Maggiore and the University of Trieste.
studia e fa
This is an
predizioni
algorithm
sul rischio per lo scompenso
making
cardiaco nei
prediction
pazienti con diabete,
on
quindi è stato un
heart risk
lavoro
in patients
molto
suffering
lungo,
from
ma adesso
diabetes.
finalmente
It's
verrà
been
pubblicato
a long
dall'Università di
work which
Trieste.
will be finally published by the
Serikim
University of Trieste.
continuerà
Serikim will keep
investire
on
per sviluppare l'officina
investing
farmaceutica in GMP
to
e questo
develop
darà
its
veramente la
pharmaceutical
possibilità
lab,
all'azienda di attrarre maggiore
which
valore
will give
aggiunto
the
nelle attività
company
che
a
svolgeva
possibility
prima
to
grazie alla
draw more
certificazione
added
GMP
value
e
thanks to the
il
GMP
BIC
certification.
continuerà nella
BIC
realizzazione della sua infrastruttura tecnologica e la nuova
will
società
keep on developing
diventerà
its
la
technological infrastructure, and the new company
mecanobiologia
will develop
che serve un ulteriore
mechanobiology, the
punto di distribuzione.
mechanobiology
Quindi in
that is
pratica
needed for
abbiamo
a
raccolto dei
further
fondi
distribution sector. So we've
in varie
collected money,
forme,
funds
abbiamo
in
creato
different
un
forms.
gruppo che
We've created
quest'anno
a group
supererà i 10 milioni di euro
that
di
this year
fatturato
will exceed
e,
10 million
abbiamo dei
euro
piani molto
turnover, a
chiari
10
di
million
cose
euro
che
turnover. We have
parte
clear
quest'anno abbiamo
plans
già realizzato, ma che sostanzialmente realizzeranno
of
quelli che
what we
sono i
want to
nostri
do,
driver di crescita. Se questi driver di
and that
crescita
we've already
funzioneranno come
partially
da noi
implemented
previsto,
this year. If
probabilmente
the
avremo la
growth
possibilità di
drivers will
attrarre
keep on functioning as
ulteriore
we foresee,
finanza
then we will
e in
attract other
particolare
financing.
quello che è
And
il nostro obiettivo sarà
in
quello di quotarsi
particular,
in borsa e quindi completare un ciclo
we
in cui siamo
will
partiti da
try
diciamo,
and
degli
list
amici di
ourselves
Diego
on the stock
Braver e siamo
exchange and
arrivati atterrati in borsa
complete a
con
chip.
un'operazione spero di
So
alto
we
valore.
started with the friends of Diego Bravar, and we
Grazie e
hope to land
complimenti
at
per
the stock
questi
exchange. Thank
sviluppi
you.
sia quelli
Congratulations
già
on the development
realizzati
of your
che
company,
quelli diciamo, che ci ha
the
preannunciato
ones you've already implemented and the
sulla
ones you
piazza abbiamo
foresee for
questa
the next
realtà
future.
e credo
I'm
sia
glad to
venuto il
see we
momento
have
per Friuli
such a
di
company,
chiudere
such
il
a group
cerchio,
here.
anche perché
So
Friuli ha
now
parlato
leave
di
the
molte
floor
di
to
queste iniziative,
Friulia.
ha
We can
compreso
close the
le
circle because Friuli is
agevolazioni.
partner of many of these initiatives, this included.
Thank you. Mr. Loser presented what at the moment is one of the main investments of the Friulia portfolio. I will explain what Friulia is. It is the financing company of the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, which is the majority shareholder, and it is the authority that gives us the guidelines for the investments. So we were established 55 years ago, and private equity it has a 150, 160 million euro. It cannot be compared to Generali, of course, but this is the framework. This portfolio is within the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, so the companies are all established in this region. So it has direct effects on
interviene,
the
se guardiamo al business life cycle di una società, fondamentalmente su tutto l'arco temporale. Devo dire peraltro che nel corso degli anni ha cercato progressivamente di venire incontro a quelle che sono
the company tried to meet the requirements of the companies in general, in particular the local companies, trying to extend its interface even to the first phases of the life cycle of a company. We're still not working in the pre-seed cycle, but we are already considering seed companies and finance them. During the life cycle of a company, of an enterprise, there are elements that lead us to consider innovation under different points of view. At the moment, the majority of the companies in our portfolio are not innovative company, but gradually they require to bring innovation into their processes. This is why, especially in the past few years, artificial intelligence, IoT, as well as projects connected with the ecological and energy transition have been appearing in the development plans of enterprises, in conversion plans of companies. And so it is particularly important to be more effective, efficient in a very challenging context, which is also even more uncertain. So we tried to give room to startups and innovative SMEs. BioValley investment is one of the projects that can represent how much a traditional funding company can have a key role in the project. Crowdfunding CEO presented another example of how there can be a sort of passage from a seed initiative, so which is very difficult to be financed by banks, difficult to be approached by institutional investors for the size of the operation, when the enterprise is a little bit more than a concept, to help those companies to become something concrete, a business model that can have elements that can be considered by the market and institutional investors. Friulia subscribed the following rounds after the first round, in which crowdfunding can work, so as to give a certain profile to help the company's growth in the following rounds. Through this experience that Friulia has gained in the past 2 years, we have the awareness that it is possible to be more effective and winning when you can create a network, work as a network with all the operators that can give their contribution to the activities that can benefit from the innovation aspects. A single operator struggles to have relations with all the players. So, and this is also to summarize today's discussion. So it is difficult for an operator to directly connect with the universities, research centers, or acquire the skills to evaluate and translate into figures the ideas that can be very complex in terms of the technological aspects lying behind. So when an enterprise can be put into contact with the players that are able to bring to the table all these factors, elements, in that case, we are we are able to propose projects that are very interesting for the territory, with consequences that are very important when the investments are made. And Mr. Loz's presentation was a perfect example to have a strong impact even for the future. I'm glad to see how institutions that have a higher impact on economy in general, for example, Generali, are able to allocate more and more resources to finance not just projects that are already mature, but other undertakings that need a push forward in terms of investment. Another important point mentioned by Cerruti concerns the positivity, the possibility, to, through the collaboration of everyone, to create an environment in which the idea, the research, and the transition from an idea to the business can be created. A reference to what initiatives are also in legal terms must come from these actors, and this is extremely important at this time because we need a chance to close the circle within which all the competencies and the aspects required to continue with the development are present. Would you like to add something else? We'll try to make a summary even this afternoon, but considering the time available, I'd like to thank all the speakers and all the people in attendance, and now we deserve a break. Thank you for your attention.